Hi Cancer, and welcome to your February 2024 horoscope. In February, even though it's a short month, there is a lot happening. And there are aspects with almost all of the planets. So no matter if you get more affected by Saturn transits or Pluto transits or Mars transits, there ought to be a day in February where you're going to feel some type of way. You're going to have some strong emotions and some strong feelings. But let's get into more of a day-to-day breakdown of February. On February 6th, we have Venus in your 7th house, squaring the nodes in your 10th and 4th house. So these are the angular houses for you, so it might feel quite intense. And on this day, we also have the Sun from your 8th house, trining and sextiling the nodes. So it's definitely a day where we got a lot of nodal activity. And if you've been keeping track of astrology in the last little while, you would know that the nodes in Aries and Libra for almost another year are asking you to set boundaries, stand up for yourself, and take a look at all of the ways you're compromising that don't actually serve you. And on this day, your ego might especially love for you to set boundaries and might get a little bit carried away with it. But at the same time, on this day, you realize that you cannot do it alone, that you need relationships, and that sometimes relationships require compromise and meeting the other person halfway. So it's going to be an interesting day in trying to strike the balance between the two. On the 7th of February, we have lots of other aspects happening. So we have the Sun squaring Uranus, Venus trining Uranus, and Mars sextiling Neptune. And that's activating quite a few houses, you're right, which is the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 11th house for you. So, relationships, your belief system, the groups that you belong to, they're all somehow being highlighted on this day. Whatever actions you're taking on this day might feel aligned and sort of inspired from above. That might feel like actions that are actually beneficial for yourself and for those around you. And these might be especially actions you're taking around your relationships, moving things forward, maybe showing up for the other person in some type of beautiful way as well. Whatever it is that you're doing around your relationships, it might make others look at you in a sort of unique or weird way. Whatever you're doing is unusual. And those that are close to you will understand it. Those that are close to you will see that it's really in alignment to who you are. And it's an action that will help solidify your relationship. But those that are a bit farther away from you might not understand it quite so well. And they might see you as somebody that's sort of weird or unusual because of it. On the 9th of February, we have a new moon in Aquarius in your 8th house. Pluto is going to be bringing some interesting lessons to you for the next 20 years in your 8th house. Lessons around letting go, lessons around vulnerability, around sharing, lessons around admitting that there are dark parts inside of us that we all have, and that there are dark things about being a human on this earth. Take a look at what Pluto brought you around January 20th and 21st when it entered this house. And if you notice something on those 2 days that you thought, ooh, okay, I want to do this differently. I want to show up differently in this way around this issue. Then during this new moon, it's a wonderful time to begin that, to take an action towards doing things differently around your vulnerability. On the 12th of February, Venus in your 7th house is sextiling Neptune in your 9th house. You've been getting quite a few lessons in regards to your relationships, in regards to Capricorn, your 7th house, because you've had Pluto there for a while. And now that Pluto is leaving that house, has left that house, and now that both Venus and Mars are going to leave it as well, it might feel like you finally understand it. You finally get relationships and something clicks within you that makes you understand the purpose and the meaning behind your relationships. So it can turn out to be a really beautiful day. On the 13th of February, Mars enters Aquarius and your 8th house. And as it does that, it conjuncts Pluto. Mars together with Pluto can be quite powerful, can be quite energetic. Be careful not to burn yourself out. Be careful not to dive into all of the dark parts of yourself, of the world around you, and want to fix it, want to make it better. This Plutonian story is going to continue to carry out for the next 20 years, so there's no need to resolve anything on this day. My one piece of advice is just to reflect and make sure you're directing it towards something useful and something meaningful. Instead of using that energy on petty things or things that will not matter in 5 years from now. And just 3 days later, on February 16th, Venus will also enter Aquarius, and it will also conjunct Pluto. So this is a bit of a different aspect because it's with Venus. And specifically, I really see this day as you getting triggered by relationships. It could be in many sort of different ways. That's something you will live out and figure out what it is. But they often say that our relationships are like the place where we find the parts of ourselves that we don't like and the parts of the other person that we don't like, because it's such a intimate relationship. So things come to the surface. Again, it might feel intense. Don't try to resolve it already in this day. Just take notes, see what's happening, what sort of things are coming up. And, you have the next 20 years to continue to work through these themes and to learn to show up in a way that you want to. On the 19th of February, the Sun enters Pisces and your 9th house. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, so according to astrology, this is also the end of the astrological year. From March 19th or 20th, we're going to start a new year with Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. So because of this, I recommend that you take the next month, especially from February 19th onwards, to reflect. Reflect on what happened in 2023 and what you want to let go of and not bring anymore in the upcoming year. And especially for you, Cancer risings or Cancer suns, I do recommend that you take a look at what part of your belief system is not serving you anymore. Do you believe that you're not powerful, that you're not capable? Do you believe that you're never going to be a good partner? That you aren't meant to do meaningful work? Whatever it is, take a look at what you don't want to take with you in the upcoming new year. On the 21st of February, we have some more high emotions. This is because Venus and Mars will be conjunct in your 8th house. There's a lot of passion, a lot of determination, a lot of this fighter energy. And especially because a couple of days earlier, both Mars and Venus were in conversation with Pluto. This day could be sort of after effects or remnants of what those earlier connections brought to you. Again, this is happening in your 8th house. So perhaps you feel really confronted by death. You feel really confronted by the ugly parts that we all have inside of us. You feel quite confronted with how vulnerable you feel in your relationships and how somebody could very easily hurt you. And that might feel really uncomfortable for you during this time. On the 24th of February, we have a full moon in Virgo, and it will be happening in your 3rd house. During this full moon, we also have Venus square Jupiter. Venus is in your 8th house and Jupiter is in your 11th house. So the moon is shining a bright light on your communication, on your local environment. And if there was any unclarity that you had around the way you communicate, perhaps you were thinking like, okay, maybe I'm not assertive enough in the way I communicate. Perhaps you weren't unsure if you should start a newsletter or change the way you answer emails, for example. Then this full moon might make things clear. You might feel like there's a sense of clarity around what you should do in regards to this area. Because Venus and Jupiter are square and they're both benefics, it might lead to overextension. It might lead to optimism and really indulging in pleasures. So I would advise, I know when things become more clear, you can tend to feel relieved, happy, but I would advise to just be careful that you're not going overboard during this full moon. During the 26th of February, we have Mars square Jupiter. So it's again highlighting your 11th and 8th house. We just had Venus squaring Jupiter, and now we have Mars squaring Jupiter. And Mars together with Jupiter can lead to impulsiveness. It can lead to wanting to take action and wanting to take action now, being very optimistic and feeling like, yes, this is the best idea I've ever had and I'm going to do it right now. For you especially, it might be some action you want to take around the uncomfortable feelings you've been feeling around being vulnerable in your relationships. And of course, I want you to go ahead and listen to what you feel inspired to do. The only recommendation I would make is just wait a little bit. There's no need to act impulsively on this day. Reconsider a couple of days later if the solutions still feel just as amazing. And then if they do, go ahead and carry it out. On the 28th of February, the Sun and Saturn are conjunct in your 9th house. Saturn has been going through your 9th house for almost a year. It entered in March of last year. And it's been putting a damper sort of on your belief system. It's been making you consider where you haven't really been adulting in that area, deceiving yourself, being childish in that area. And on this day, it might really feel like it's putting a damper on you. Things might feel really impossible. They might feel pessimistic. Keep in mind with Saturn that it likes it when we put in the work. So just do your best, show up, do the daily work, and then eventually Saturn will reward you. And sort of as a beautiful nod from the universe, we close off the month the same way we started it. We started the month with a conversation between Venus and the nodes, and we close off the month again with a conversation between Venus and the nodes. The start of the month was a more difficult aspect. It was a square, while the end of the month is a trine and a sextile, so a little bit more easy. I would say that if you allowed yourself to experience the lessons coming up at the beginning of the month, you integrated them, you thought about them, you took aligned action, you showed up to what you were feeling and really reflected on them, that at the end of this month, there will be a more beautiful resolution to those same topics. And it might lead to a feeling where you realize that actually setting boundaries leads to more vulnerability in relationships and more meaningful connections in your relationships. So overall, Cancer, wow. February might be intense because there's a lot happening in your 8th house, which is not the easiest house. There's also a lot happening in your 9th house, which is about your belief systems. And I cannot begin to imagine, reconsidering your belief systems and how groundbreaking that can feel and how groundbreaking it can be. The things that you used to believe and ground your whole world on no longer seem to fit, and it can lead to an identity crisis for sure. So just take it easy on yourself, Cancer. Make sure you take care of yourself in February. Thank you for joining me for this horoscope. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to make sure you catch the one in March, then make sure you subscribe. I hope to see you again soon.